So once again, welcome back. And well, welcome to the first lecture. And this is the course in biology for non-majors. I'm going to put it over here. BSc 1005, spring of 21. My name is Alfred Chaffee. I am a Catholic priest in the Archdiocese of Miami for over 30 years now, 35 years. And I've been in Miami for 50 years, half a century. So very familiar with the place, mostly Bay County, less familiar with Broward. And I have a doctorate in bioethics from Gregorian University in Rome, Italy. I have a doctorate in genetics from Purdue. And I've been teaching here biology and bioethics for about a dozen years now at St. Thomas. This is, by the way, our Catholic diocesan university in the Archdiocese. The Archdiocese of Miami covers Broward, Dade, and Monroe County. What's Monroe County? Do you know? Monroe is the Keys. How many of you have been to the Keys? Florida Keys. Okay, people need to get around, okay? It's a lot to see. It's South Florida, a lot of nature. If you look to the east, where's east? Which way are you facing right now? You're facing south, okay? So east is going to be where the ocean is, which is my right to your left. That's east. Where the sun rises in the east, right? And it sets in the west. So to your back is north. Good to be oriented because Florida is flat. We don't have mountains to tell us which way is everything. So we orient ourselves by the sun, and eventually you have a feel. You've been down here long enough. You have a feel for where the beach is, where the ocean is. And that's going to be east. And part of biology and science in general is observation, a common thing. So we're going to be looking at observation and experimentation, which is the scientific method. And this class is also hands-on, explorational experience. So we're going to provide for you what we're calling the magical collegiate STU experience. All right? Meaning that it will be hands-on. And if you hate science or nature, my promise to you is that at the end of this course, you will at least respect nature and maybe even get to love nature. I have several sayings that I say along the way, and one of them is that the only wrong question is the one that's not asked. In my lecture anyway, in my class, my course, is the only wrong question is the one that's not asked, all right? Periodically, I'll stop and I ask any questions or comments. And the typical reaction is there's dead silence. You can hear the pin drop. So don't be shy about asking questions, making comments. If you disagree with me, I welcome disagreement. So let's get into it together. This is your textbook. How many of you have your textbook?
Were we supposed to pick it up in the library?
Library or bookstore, either way.
Okay.
I don't know. Library or bookstore? Anybody know? Bookstore, yes.
Bookstore.
I just found out they moved the bookstore from one year to the next. How many of you have been to the cafeteria?
Where did they move the bookstore?
Okay. The bookstore used to be next to the cafeteria. Now it's an extension of the cafeteria. And so the bookstore now is in the student center. How many of you have been to the student center? All right, you're getting close. One, you've seen the pinball machine there, or not pinball, the football, the soccer little thing, the game in the middle of the student center, right? Okay, if you see, you know those, what is that called?
It's in the student store.
Sorry?
It's in the student store.
Student
store.
Store.
So like in the student center on the right, there's a store, and in the back of the store is a bookstore.
There, excellent. Thank you. What is that machine called? Soccer, football.
Football.
What is it called?
Football.
This one. Yeah. Football, thank you. Okay, football. In Brazilian, you know. How many of you speak Spanish or know something about Spanish? Okay, good. You know how we say football in Spanish? Futbolín. Futbolín. Or football. No, we say football. We just write it differently.
That is a football.
That is a football, yes. Yes, that is a football. Where's my... just word. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so in American, right, we write football. Typically in football, we talk about American football. But in Latin America, we write football like that, because it's phonetic, football, football. And here we're talking about soccer. Soccer, all right? Otherwise, it's American football. Anyway, that's the machine, and when you see this machine in front of you, you're in the right building. And then go to your right, and you'll see the bookstore there. So that's the bookstore. And this course will have two components to it. It will be a lab component, which will be forest outside. And most of the lectures are going to be outdoors, by the way, because we'll take care of the natural air conditioning that we have during the springtime here in Miami. And then also, you're going to be studying on your own because it's blended, right? The course is blended. So you're going to be studying a lot of the book on your own and doing weekly quizzes to see how well you're learning. And we're going to flip the classroom. What is flip the classroom? Anybody heard about flip the classroom? No. Flip the classroom is that you're going to teach yourself. I'm going to teach you. There's another little saying. Let's see. Have you heard of give me a fish and I'll eat for 1 day. Teach me how to fish and I'll eat for a lifetime. Thank you. My uncle, Ezekiel, when I was very young and he was still alive, he taught me how to hook the bait on the hook, how to put the bait on the hook. All right, when I was a little kid. I love fishing, I love nature. And ever since then, I learned how to fish. So I'm going to teach you how to teach yourselves, whatever you want to learn. How many of you have access to the internet? All right, so that's great because that means that now you don't have an excuse for not knowing whatever you want to know. You have access to the internet, then you have access to a wealth of information. Then the next step, because you're going to get on the internet, what are you going to get? You're going to get the good, the bad, and the ugly. That was an Italian Western film way back. Any of you heard about that movie? The good, the bad, and the ugly? Yeah. And you can have the beautiful if you want. The point is that on the internet, you get everything, right? It's like drinking out of a fire hose. Then you have to discern what's good, what's appropriate, what it is that you're actually looking for. Okay? The same with the textbook, which you may get a hard copy or a soft cover actually, or you may get a link to a virtual book, but that's going to be our text for the course. We're going to go section by section. You're essentially going to read the text and do the quiz on a weekly basis. And then we're going to talk about that stuff when we're out in the field, okay, while we're doing ecological things. Any questions or comments so far? Nobody want to leave yet? No? Stick around? Okay, good. Okay. Good, let's go forward. So please go over there, look for that pinball machine, the football machine, and then be right and get your textbook. All right, thank you. Okay, this is a little general introduction. Everybody get this little sheet of paper? Okay. Everybody able to answer everything? Okay, if you're done with it, pass it forward, please, and start taking a look. Because what we're going to do is we're going to make teams. There are 25 students registered in this course. We have about half of you here today. And the other half, I don't know where they are, but they're not here. And then there's another section that I have of the same course, which is another 25. So it's a total of 50 students for this course. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to divide you in groups of about 10. You may have to make smaller groups. Notice there are 5 days in Monday through Friday, right? And 50 fits nicely into there, so about 10 students per day. And so you will each have 1 day assigned to you when we'll meet on campus and do the field work. So that's why I asked for your schedule here, because now I'm going to sit the rest of the afternoon and figure out who has, who's on what, who's on first and all that, to see the teams. So I'll start making the teams, right? Now the other course is on Friday, so it's going to take a little while to make that one. I may be able to make the teams with you without having to worry about the other course. Yes?
Currently, I don't have any courses on Fridays, so I'm free.
Excellent, thank you very much. Right, yeah, that's we've gone back. We keep going back and forth. You know, if you stay in education long enough, and I've been in education long enough, decades, you see stuff coming around. Okay, what goes around comes around, and we used to be 2 administrations ago, Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. Then it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, and now we're back to Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then Friday is kind of a rubble. So I suspect that most of you will be available Friday, but then again, I cannot have all 50 of you on Friday, right? I'm gonna break you out throughout the week. Let me see, I become more familiar with names. Kylie, welcome. Thank you. Warren. Okay. Oh, sorry, I forgot to ask for the actual time. All right, so I'm going to put on the side here. Do you mind passing it back? Just give me the starting time, just the starting time under each course.
Warren?
All right. Thanks. Katie, how do you pronounce your name?
Katie.
Again, please.
Katie.
Katie with a D?
No.
R.
Yeah.
Katie. Okay, Katie. Okay. And we have Manuela.
Here. Is that Manuela?
Manuela?
Yeah.
Okay. Malucci. Okay, Malucci. Okay, business. I only have Monday, 12:15. Just one part. We have more. You have more? Okay, please. Just the starting time for each one. I know that there are an hour and 15 minutes each. Okay, Bianca. Bianca. Hi. Hi. Nothing on Wednesday? Okay. Alicia? Or Elisha? Eliza? Okay. Just this course? Is that more? Okay. And just the time, please, the starting time, okay? Josh? Josh? All right, also times, please. Thank you. Miranda. Yeah, times, okay, listen. Sorry. Yeah, your time, the time. Again, just a starting time underneath the course each day. Okay, Pedro. Pedro. Okay. Chanel.
Chanel,
Chanel.
I have a question.
Yep.
So that's our school schedule, but if
Yep.
we work on the days that we don't have school, should we have put that down?
Not yet. We'll work it out on an individual basis. Once I put you in a group, I'll call you. That's why I got your phone number. Now we can be in touch. Okay. Sophia. Right now. Okay. Rose. Mercy. Yes. Thank you. Right, did I miss it? No, yeah, here. Adolfo. Times. That's back, please. Again. Thank you. Okay, Daniela. Biology. Bio major. May I ask, Daniela, who's your advisor? Your academic advisor? Yes? You don't know? This is your first year student, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a general biology course. But you're a bio major, not nursing, for example? Okay. Because normally for bio majors, we have bio 1010, not bio 1005. That's why I was asking about your advisor. You don't remember who advised your courses, who planned your courses? Okay, let's take a look at your schedule for a moment after class, right? Because you may belong, maybe you belong in 1010 instead of 1005. All right. And Lillian? Same?
Yes.
Okay. And also I need your times for the other course. Thank you. All right, so the two of you, if you can stay there for a few minutes, we'll finish ahead of time. Thanks. Did I miss anyone? Okay, some people are working on their schedule still, yeah? Good. Anything else from the beginning? As I put the groups together and either call you or text you, you'll have my cell phone number. So you can tag it and put my name on it, whatever, so that then we can be in communication like that, right? Because we're finding out a number of things about students today. Students have difficulty looking at their emails, right? Please don't get into that bad habit of ignoring your emails. I know that we bombard you with emails, and many other places bombard us with emails. We're typically trying to sell us something, right? So we do delete. But if you get an email from me, don't delete it, because you may fail the course if you delete that email. Right? I send you minimal stuff, but it's important when I send it. And do get into the habit of looking at your emails. If you don't have that habit yet, that's a good habit. At least 3 times a day. 3 times a day at least. First thing in the morning, around noontime, maybe over lunch, and then last thing at night. That way you don't really miss anything. First thing in the morning, you know if something comes up overnight, you're ready for the day. At noon is a checking point, and then at the end of the day, in case there's something due for the next day, that you catch. Yes?
Are you gonna send the assignment on Canvas or?
Yes, it will be Canvas.
I'm just waiting.
You'll know how to get into Canvas and all that. Okay, it's a work in progress. I'm still getting my name into the Canvas, so you don't see it yet. You will not see this course yet for maybe a couple more days in Canvas, all right?
Wait,
I'm working on it.
I remember now. I received an email for the book. It says for us to put a payment, something for the book.
There should be no payment for the book. The book is supposed to be included in the tuition, but there may be a payment. It's a lab fee. If you all pay a lab fee, You don't know if you paid a late fee?
I got the same email, I just put in the card details, but I don't think it charges.
It doesn't
Yeah,
charge?
It doesn't charge.
Okay,
And also our book is online as well.
so it's
not-
on Brightwave?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on, but I'm not sure if the option is there for us to get the book.
And to have an actual hardcover,
It might
a
not
hard
be.
copy.
Yeah.
So for now, it's an ebook.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, of course, you know, like everything else, the system saves money if it's ebook, right? Because I can mail out 1,000 e-subscriptions, but to mail out 1,000 hardcover is a different story. So if you want a hard copy, if you're having difficulty with the ebook, I think you're entitled to get a hard copy. I think that was the original agreement that we did with Fallen several years ago. Okay, and Marucci. Nice. Elijah. Thank you. Warren. Okay. Thursday, same as Tuesday, I presume, Warren? Yep. Thursday, same as Tuesday, right? The schedule.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, times. Very good, thank you. What was I talking about? The book? Yes. Oh, the email. Yes, please. I know it's a royal pain, but do check your emails. All right? It's part of being professional. We're studying to be a professional, so it's just part of being a professional. You know, it's much easier to the phone. There's a way that you can push your emails to the phone also. I actually look at them here sometimes. Some outdoors, but look at them, okay? Anything else? Non-subject related, technicalities? All right, most of the time, like I mentioned, we'll be meeting outdoors. So you can dress accordingly, meaning from top down, a white rim hat of some sort. Not just a cap. You can use any white rim hat that you want. But buy something that has the full rim around, that way we have cover from the sun. Okay? And long sleeve shirt, which you can put on top of whatever you're wearing underneath. All right? A long sleeve shirt, again, mostly to protect the arms from UV. And flat shoes. No heels outside, especially when we get into the forest and the nature trails and all that. So you may bring a little bag or a knapsack or something, where you keep your hat and your flat shoes in there. You change from your high heels to flat shoes, whatever your other shoes you like to wear. Okay. I'll provide the other stuff like gloves and clippers and the other equipment that we'll be using throughout the course. Yes?
How many times a week will we go outside?
Once.
Once? You said that already? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
Okay.
It's an elevator thing, but typically it's going to be once for 1 to 2 hours, more or less. Okay.
Are we gonna be by the chicky hut?
Part of it will be there. We'll do a tour of the hut, and then we'll get into the actual forest. We'll be working also at a sector in front of the new business school. So you can drive by there. You can see some clearing that we've been doing in other places. Yeah, we're going to get into it all over the place. We have actually the core of the forest is 15 acres, the very core of it. Oh, let me stop for a moment because I'm going to get there in a minute with my presentation. Okay, so we have the white rim hat and we have the flat shoes and the long sleeve shirt that you can put on top of whatever you're wearing.
Do we need the hat?
Need it? Yes, please. Okay, now, for example, if you go to Goodwill, you could probably buy this for $1 or $2, and the shoes probably also for $2 or $3. maybe less. All right, so it doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be wide rim and flashes and low speed. You get as fast as you want, but this is just basic. Maybe your sibling has one that you can borrow for a while, or some friend, family member. You can hunt around, get into your parents' closets, see what you find there. So that's big shirt, maybe.
Can we wear just like a cap, the one that was like covered in front?
No, not cap, but that's the whole point. You see, this illustrates a point. All right, so these are caps and these are wide brim hats, right? There's a principle in nature, in science, that we say form follows function. Is that large enough? Back row? Yeah. Okay. These are saying form follows function and not the other way around. In other words, the structure of the thing is according to the function of the thing, and not the other way around. All right? So for example, if a leaf is going to photosynthesize, leaf needs to be exposed to light, right, to do photosynthesis. So it behooves a leaf to be flat and horizontal. You're not going to find leaves that are vertical like this in nature, because that defeats the purpose. So the structure of the thing is according to the function of the thing. If the leaf is going to photosynthesize, then it needs to have maximum exposure to light. And horizontal is the best exposure, things like that. Now, there's a technicality here, which we don't need to get bogged down into. This form actually refers in, it rhymes with the 3x, form follows function, but really that form is actually shape. Because for scientists, form and shape are the same thing, right? For example, if the arm needs to bend, you better have a hinge somewhere for it to bend, because otherwise it's rigid. And the hinge is called the elbow, all right? So that form follows function. A bending arm has a hinge, which is the elbow. Fingers also, they have several hinges. They have 2 hinges, right? Actually 3 with an knuckle area. So look at your hands, example. That's form follows function. The hand is made for grasping. It works well for grasping. Doesn't work too good for walking, right? The feet are for that. So the hands and the feet have a different design, different structure according to their function. The only reason I mention this is that for scientists, talking about empirical scientists, natural scientists, all right, form and shape are the same thing, but philosophically, there's a big difference between form and shape. And I'll give you an example. Anybody know the difference, the philosophical difference between form and shape? Okay, so how many human forms do we have in this classroom? We have one human form. We're all human, right? So one human species. We all belong to the same species, human. So we have one human form, one human substance, one human essence. But how many human shapes do we have? Quite obvious that we have 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 17, 16, 17. We have 17 different shapes, human shapes, right? We have one human form. Philosophically, because the form is the essence, is the substance, which grammatically is also the substantive, the noun, the thing. This is a classroom. This is not an airplane, for example. Okay? Anyway, form follows function, or shape follows function, is one of the basic principles in nature. And then that should answer the question, why a wide brim hat as opposed to a cap? Why is the difference? What? Sorry, I don't have your name yet. Tell me your first name, please.
Sophia.
Sophia, yes. You know what Sophia means in Greek? No? Wisdom. Okay. So why the difference between the white rim hat and the cap? It's going to be outdoors,
More coverage.
more coverage. That's it. You got your shade all the way around instead of just the eyes. Okay? So just don't follow this function. Anything else about the basic gear? Look, if in 1 week you haven't been able to find a white rim hat that's cheap and a long sleeve shirt that's cheap and flat shoes that are cheap, come see me and I'll be happy to make a donation. Okay?
Is a bucket hat from?
Sorry?
A bucket hat?
Bucket hat? I'm not familiar with bucket hat. Bucket hat? Let's see. Like that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's on the short side of the rim, right? Do you agree? You have a bucket hat already. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think a wide rim hat will give you more coverage, but I think a bucket hat may be okay. It's up to you. Okay, as long as it's all the way around. Well, I've been mentioning a little bit about this already. Any other question or comment so far? No? Okay. So let me now do just a little general introduction about the scientific method. I'm actually surprised we don't have more nurses. So most of you have nursing, but most of you are in business or accounting, business, do some business. All right. And then math, data science, and then nursing. You're the only one nursing so far? Yeah, okay, and the others. You're nursing also? Okay. First name? Right. Okay. And then what are the mergers? Communication, foreign. Psychology. Polisci, yeah. English. Okay. All right. I don't know how much background you've had in science. For example, high school. Well, high school, there's at least a science course, biology or chemistry course, physics, at least a natural science course. We're going to go over just the introduction, which is the scientific method, right? How many of you have heard just that term, scientific method? Heard the scientific method? Right? There are different methods that are used in life, but the scientific method is rigorous. It doesn't mean that it cannot be fun. Rigorous stuff can be fun too, all right? Especially if you get into what you like. But it has to be rigorous because then it has to be verified by other people throughout the world. For example, when we publish an article in a scientific journal, part of the article, the middle of the article, is called Materials and Methods, M&Ms. The M&Ms is the Materials and Methods. And any scientist throughout the world using those procedures in the M&Ms should be able to reproduce the results that we got in our experiment in our lab. And that will apply anywhere else in the world, given the right conditions. And so that's why it has to be rigorous. It also has to be as objective as possible, right? And so it's based on this duality of observation and experimentation. So we look at nature first, then we infer some hypothesis, then we test the hypothesis. And I can tell you, being a scientist for many years, most of the experiments in the lab don't work most of the time. So one has to go back and tweak the experiment, tweak the protocol until we get the result that we're looking for, or we may never get the result that we're looking for because that result just doesn't happen, doesn't exist in nature. All right? But it's this testing the hypothesis through experimentation would tell us whether the hypothesis is correct or not. And we may have to redefine the hypothesis, or we may have to redefine, after testing the hypothesis, the experiment. Protocol. Eventually, when we do enough iterations of that, then we get some kind of result. Either a positive or a negative result, but we have a conclusion. And eventually, when that is done over a period of time and it's tested pretty much throughout the world, then we come up with a theory, a scientific theory. And then these become universal. In other words, wherever we go throughout the world, we find that all species have as their genetic material typically DNA, and in some cases RNA, like in some viruses. For example, can you give me an example of a virus that has an RNA genetic structure? Very popular. We've been dealing with it for a year. Warren?
Delia?
Sorry?
Delia?
Can't hear what?
I can hear you.
Oh, so a species or an organism that has RNA as its genetic material instead of DNA.
A leaf.
What is it?
A leaf.
Whole wheat?
A leaf.
A leaf?
Yeah.
A leaf? Typically, leaves which belong to plants will have DNA as a genetic material, okay? But I'm thinking of the coronavirus. We've heard of the coronavirus. Okay. So the coronavirus is an influenza type virus, influenza type. In other words, it's a flu-like virus. One of the characteristics of flu-like viruses and flu viruses is that they have RNA as their genetic structure instead of DNA. And that's why they're called retroviruses. Retroviruses. Okay? But pretty much DNA is the universal molecule of inheritance. In other words, every human being that has ever been tested for DNA, every lion, every fly, every bacteria that has been tested for DNA, we find that their genetic material is DNA throughout the world. So we say that DNA is the universal molecule of inheritance. Okay. That's just one example of an observation that has been repeated throughout life, throughout different parts of the world, and we always get the same result. How many of you have heard of Charles Darwin? Charles Darwin, okay, theory of evolution, right? It's most famous for his theory of evolution. Darwin based his theory of evolution on basically 5 observations that any of us could have made if we were attentive, if we were observant. Observation is because we are observant, right? We observe. So I'm going to ask you again to look behind you at the windows, at the stuff outside the window. Facing that way, is that facing is that facing north, south, east, or west?
North.
Okay, you remember, very good. Okay, so the trees just north of us, most of the trees that we can see from there, from here, are, what are they? Pine trees, right? The pine trees, and their particular type of pine tree is called Dade County / pine, otherwise known as Pinus ellioti, scientific name, which, to be accurate, is okay, but however. Right. And we observed that do they have leaves or needles? They have needles instead of leaves. They have needles instead of leaves. That's pretty significant, right? That makes them a pine tree. And all conifers have leaves, have needles instead of leaves. Like I mentioned, that's an adaptation for what? For winter, for snow. Imagine if you have a needle or if you have a leaf, the difference in snow accumulation, and after a while the snow starts getting heavy. Why does snow get heavy? Because snow is water, solid water. If you ever carry around a gallon of water, you know, liquid, it's heavy. So a leaf with snow is going to snap off. But a needle will accumulate very little snow and will be able to survive in the winter. Okay, so it's an adaptation, again, form follows function, right? The shape of the needle is according to its function. And so if we're observing, we say, oh, look, these pine trees, these are pine trees. By the way, it's the only species that is here in South Florida, is Dade County / pine. Okay? But what kind of climate do we have?
Warm, tropical.
Exactly. One tropical, subtropical, actually technically it's subtropical, right? And it is warm and moist most of the year. And therefore, these pines adapted to this climate. They're adapted, but they're outside of their natural environmental range. Okay? They adapted basically during the last ice age, as I mentioned earlier, which is about 10,000 years ago. Because the peninsula of Florida was never covered with ice. And we're talking about an ice sheet during the glacial periods, during the ice ages. How many of you have heard of an ice age? Ice age? Okay, well, we've had 5 ice ages that we can tell geologically in the history of the world. But in between ice ages, we have what is known as an interglacial period. The Earth becomes tropicalized. And during an ice age, we are a winterized age, a winterized world. And the ice sheet, we're not just talking about a layer of ice, you know, on top of the road or on top of the terrain. We're talking 1 to 2 miles of ice, all right? 1 to 2 miles of ice on top of the Earth. That's pretty drastic and significant, number one. But secondly, when you consider that that ice slowly is moving over the thousands of years that the ice age lasts, and sometimes hundreds of thousands of years, that ice cap moves back and forth like this, and so it's grinding on top of the Earth. How many of you have heard of the Great Lakes? Great Lakes up north? This actually, these actual photographs of Earth These are satellite photographs, all right? And you can see the Great Lakes are here, the 5 Great Lakes. These were carved out, they more or less, with your imagination, they have an orientation that is north-south or diagonal, because it is speculated that the Great Lakes were carved out by glaciers moving back and forth during the ice ages, okay? During the last ice age. And these are some of the deepest lakes in the world. So it's amazing what ice can do over thousands of years grinding on the surface of the earth. Interesting. At any rate, the last ice age never covered the peninsula of Florida, okay, up about here. And so the peninsula remained as a refuge. And these ice ages, of course, are slow growing, but they're moving forward. The ice is moving forward. And so many animals and plants migrated slowly but surely, year after year, decade after year, down into the peninsula. And one of the plants that migrated was the slash pine, slowly but surely advancing ahead of the ice, which again, I'm talking about 1 to 2 miles high, thick. Very significant, very impressive. And they were able to adapt to a subtropical environment. And then when the ice age receded, they stayed. And they love sandy soil, which is what we have here. That's why this is a highland as opposed to a lowland. You see those rainstorms that we have in the summertime, okay, with poor buckets of water. You can go outside 10 minutes later, you will not find a puddle of water in the natural terrain because it's very sandy and the water just percolates, drains right through. These pines love that. They love plenty of water, but they don't like what is known as wet feet. They don't like their roots to be in standing water. So the sandy soil is ideal for them. And they develop extensive root systems underneath, and they get to be this massive. Really, most of these pines that we have in our forest are called specimens, meaning that their trunk is at least 18 inches, 1.5 feet in diameter, at least 1.5 feet. And many of them are much more than that. For many of these trees, one person is not enough to go around the trunk. It takes at least 2 people to go around some of these trunks. Okay, they're just massive. They don't grow this large anywhere else in the county. That's why they're trying to preserve it. One of the reasons. Anyway, Darwin made observations, and it can be distilled down to 5 observations that he made to lead him to conclude to the theory of evolution, which is basically one of the basic tenets of biology today. Evolution, including human evolution. So I'm just going to give you one of them here for a moment and relate it to our forest. This is one of the observations that he made, this issue of high fertility. There's overabundance of gametes. Anybody know what is a gamete? A gamete is a sex cell. What are the 2 sex cells that we have in sexual reproduction? We're looking at that in more detail. Egg and sperm. Simple, straightforward. Females produce eggs, males produce sperm. Straightforward. Fertilization at the cellular level is the fusion or the meeting of egg and sperm, which generates a zygote. Zygote is the first cell, the first stage of development. The zygote is the same as the fertilized egg. Okay? And so there's an overabundance of gametes, of sex cells being produced in nature by all kinds of species. The vast majority of, or there could be an overabundance of zygotes or embryos. For example, a fish will lay out, the female will lay out the eggs at the bottom of the pond or the lake or the ocean. And then the male will lay out the sperm, which in fish is called smelt, right? millions upon millions of sperm cells, and then they have to wiggle around and fertilize the eggs of that were laid by the female. So you get thousands upon thousands of little embryos, embryonic fish. Now, how many baby fish does it take to replace mom and dad? Think about this. This is not a hard question, believe me, it's not a hard question, okay? How many baby fish does it take, at least theoretically, how many baby fish does it take to replace the mother and the father of that fish? You understand that the fish comes from a fertilized egg, right? So somebody had to lay that egg, that's the female. And the sperm that fertilized that egg was the male fish, right? So those are the parents of the fish. How many fish? How many say one? How many say two? 3, 4, more than 4, or just don't care? Okay. So to replace mom and dad, it takes 2, right? One mom, one dad. That's 2. All right? So it only takes 2 fish, 2 baby fish to replace mom and dad. But yet we have thousands of little embryonic fish, little baby fish. So the vast majority of those fish don't survive, right? What happens to them? They get eaten up by other fish. They're food for other fish. The same with plants. Okay? These are little sprouts. Maybe they're, I don't know what kind of sprout. Looks like a bean sprout. All right? So for plants, the same. The plants that reproduce sexually. Here's pollen grains. Dandelions. How many of these dandelion seeds does it take to replace this one dandelion?
Mm-hmm.
1 seed. And then, have you seen dandelions? Right? You've seen these flowers? You grow them, and they fly. There are thousands of these little dandelion seeds in the one plant. So there's an overabundance, right? So the inference or the conclusion was the majority of gametes, first of all, majority of gametes don't get to fertilize. For example, these are pine trees. This is a photo of pine trees. And the female cones are here, the ones that you can barely see in brown, light brown. These are the female cones. What is this yellow cloud? Anybody know what this yellow cloud is?
Pollen.
That's pollen grains. Yes, some of you are allergic to pollen, maybe, all right, or hay fever and stuff. Okay, well, this is a culprit. Sometimes in the spring, you go out and you see your car covered with the yellow dust, and you just wash the car. Okay, that's pollen. So, gazillion pollen grains, these are individual pollen grains here. Each pollen grain actually contains 2 sperm cells, each pollen grain. And it only takes that one pollen grain to fertilize 1 egg inside the cone. And so you see, the vast majority of these gametes are not going to fertilize. And of the ones that do fertilize, the vast majority are not going to grow to adult. Okay? There's a female crab with a row, R-O-W, right? Full of eggs. How many of these eggs does it take to replace the mother crab here? 1 egg. Okay? So there's an overabundance. And therefore, the vast majority don't make it, don't survive. So this led Darwin to conclude that there is tremendous competition in nature. Intense competition. We don't see it, but it's going on right now, all the time. There's an intense competition in nature. And so on average, which are the ones who get to survive? The ones that are best fit. We say the strongest, but it's not necessarily physical strength, it's genetic strength. Okay? And so the best fit, on average, are the ones that get to survive. It makes sense. And yet, for thousands of years, no one had come to that conclusion until Darwin did, 150 years ago, published a book on it, The Origin of Species, which is now the basic teaching of biology throughout the world. Not bad. Okay, so let's put it in context of our own slash pine forest. It's an urban forest, first of all, which is pretty unique because it's not out in the middle of the wilderness, but it's surrounded by city. We got the Palmetto Expressway to the north. We got housing all around it, urbanization. Just to the south, there's an airport, Apalaka Airport. Okay, so it's a very busy area. It's an urban area. And right in the middle of the urban area, we have our forest. You recognize the little map here. Here's the 37th Avenue entrance. Then you wiggle around like this. Here's the chapel. Here's the science building. We're in here somewhere in the middle of the building toward the back, right here. Okay, so here's our forest, and the core I was mentioning is about 15 acres. Then from 32nd Avenue to 37th Avenue, this whole swath of the back here is about 30 acres. And the whole property is about 140 acres. So this is going to be a playground for the next 16 weeks, right? The STU campus will be concentrating mostly here. You can see that this is an old photo, it's a Google photographs, because what's not shown here yet is the new business school building, which is over here. And in fact, the School of Business is oriented diagonally like this, so it is actually looking into the forest. This is an old gravel parking lot that we used to have here. Now the building is on top of that in this area. All right, questions or comments? I'm going to give you an example. We've been working on a core sector of the forest, which is this little clearing here, this swath. There's a close-up, closer look. What I have in yellow here is what we're calling the core sector of the forest, which is not the geographical center, because the geographical center will be more here, but it's just an area that we have, together with some students and other colleagues, we have identified to start the regeneration process of the forest, because the forest is also contaminated with a lot of invasive species from other parts of the world. Latin America, for example, the Brazilian pepper tree. Any of you heard of Brazilian pepper tree? It's around, it's nasty. We have grasses, tall grasses from Africa that were introduced for cattle, and then they got away and they're all over the place. We have species from Southeast Asia, and we have even species from Australia, the Australian pine. There's a whole stuff of Australian pine here. Anyway, the forest is what we call disturbed, meaning that it has a lot of invasive species of plants and animals. Have you seen iguanas? How many of you have seen iguanas on campus? Yeah, okay. They're beautiful, but they're invasive, right? Have you seen the peacock? The peacock on campus, the male peacock, right? People, it's a peahen. Beautiful guy, also invasive. It's pooping all over the new building already. So, you know, they get on top of the cars and with the big claws, they scratch the paint. So it's a problem. We have a problem with invasive species, plants and animals, because the climate is so benevolent. Anyway, there's the core. As we have restored it, it used to be all full of bushes. We cleared it up. And now we see the original vegetation with the slash pine and the underpart underneath the slash pine, or the understory, is mostly sable palm. So when you see palm and pines together, for a naturalist and for a scientist, pine and palm together should call your attention. Say, wow, because palms are native of a tropical or subtropical environment, right? They don't tolerate much cold. You go further north, people in Palm Beach, you're running out of palms already, all right? Because they don't tolerate much cold. But a pine tree is precisely from the northern climate. So when you see pine and palm together, for an observant person, you should stop and pause and say, wow, what's going on here? Who adapted? Typically, it's the pine that adapted to the tropical environment. Again, palms have a lot of difficulty with the cold weather, right? In this, and I'll end with this pretty much. In this core sector that we have identified and being clearing, we discovered where there are about 24 mature adult pines, /pines. All right, about 24, keep that number in mind. When we did the clearing, 2 little flags down here. Okay, these are little flags. These are tagging baby pines that we found, seedlings, pine seedlings that had just sprouted this season, this rainy season that we had, especially in the fall. We had a lot of rain in the fall, and the seeds are stimulated by rainfall. When it was very bushy, these pine seedlings, the seeds themselves were not getting sufficient water, and especially they were not getting enough light to germinate. But when we did the clearing, all of these seedlings appeared. This is an individual seedling, still has a seed cap on top of it. You see it here, right? And here's a seedling without the seed cap. They're very tiny, about 1 inch tall. And this stage is called a grassy stage because it looks like a little blade of grass, but it's not a grass, it's a baby pine, right? If you give it 100 to 150 years, it will grow to be this big, that little tiny seedling. Next week, we'll be collecting seedlings. Each one of you will be collecting one of these seedlings to have, all right? And yours to keep. So when we cleared the sector, just this little piece here, right? How many seedlings did we discover underneath? Dozens, hundreds, 2,700. 2,700 seedlings, and we have yet to do this last quarter of the sector. That's 3/4 of the sector. We're still missing a quarter from tagging. So I'm sure we're going to go over 3,000 seedlings, baby seedlings like this that we discovered. Now, what is replacement? What is the replacement number? I told you earlier, remember this number, right? Oops. Where am I going? Here. How many adult pines in the sector? Anybody remember? 24, yeah. In science, you have to be able to deal with quantity and quality simultaneously, all right? Quantity and quality, and we're obsessed about numbers. We're obsessed with quantify everything. You know, like how many eyeballs does a human being have? Okay, then if I have 3 human beings, how many eyeballs do I have? It's obsessive, the thing with numbers. But, so 24 adults, so how many seedlings do we need to replace the adults? 24. And we got 3,000. You see the abundance? What's going to happen to these seedlings? The vast majority are not going to make it. Already, we spotted some of the seedlings actually are missing their truncated. The little needle, you see the little needles? Okay, the needles are short like this, and they're blunt. They don't end up with a point. They're blunt. What does that mean? Some critter is eating the young seedlings, chomping on the young seedlings. What's the primary suspect out there? A squirrel. The squirrel is the primary rascal, is the primary suspect. Okay, you see them around? So I haven't actually seen a squirrel eat a pine seedling yet. I'll try to photograph that if I see it. Basically, we notice a few, not many, but a few are already get eaten by some creature. At any rate, the vast majority will not make it. Even so, it's an overabundance, right? So this is just an example. Right here in our own backyard, we can verify one of the key observations of Darwin that led him to his theory of evolution. Okay. And so that's what we're going to get into. Yes?
I have a question. Are these cardboards posted on Canvas or is it just during class?
A little louder, please.
Are these posted on Canvas or is it just during class that you go over that?
Okay, so yes and no. You notice that I'm recording, all right? And one of the reasons for recording is that after the the lecture, I download it, make a YouTube, and then I'll email the link to you. They have access to it, right? Most of what we'll be talking about is common sense. But remember that you're also going to teach yourself science, you're going to teach yourself biology by reading the textbook and doing the quizzes on a weekly basis, all right? Probably the quizzes will start next week because we need to get everyone on board with the textbook and so forth. So we'll work it that way. We'll work online and we'll work in the field. And like I mentioned, most of our lectures going forward will be out there. So I will not have the luxury of a PowerPoint or anything like that. It will be just talking. Okay. Anything else? Let's see where we're at. 129. So once again, welcome to St. Thomas, and we're trying to provide for you the magical collegiate experience, meaning that you have mentoring available through your academic advisors, and that you have hands-on experience, okay, and that this will be useful for your careers as you develop professionally some career that you want to do afterwards when you graduate. Any questions or comments? No? Very good. Peachy Keen and Honky Dory, that's from last century. Please get your textbooks. All right? We'll be in touch going forward with regards to the groups. And so, two biology majors, let me see you for a moment. Thanks again. Have a great day. If you have any questions along the way, just stop anyone and ask.